The combination of nightblade and elusive stacking with Badge of the Brotherhood, as explained in my previous video, gives you a lot of crit multi, enough to carry a build's damage. We're pairing this with Viper Strike, one of the worst skills in the game from a mechanical perspective. Honestly, you should only play this if you just really wanted to play a Viper Strike assassin, because the whole time I was playing this, I was thinking, I could be playing Lightning Strike right now, and yeah, you can probably just turn this into a pretty good Lightning Strike build with a few changes, which I'll go over after explaining how this build works. So we're abusing Nightblade to get a lot of crit multi with elusive effect, we get a bunch from the tree and a big chunk from Badge of the Brotherhood with 8 power charges. 3 base, 1 from the tree, 1 from helmet, 1 from shield, and 1 from your anoint. This is a poison build, so with perfect agony, half of that crit multi is applied to dot multi, which is usually harder to get in such large quantities. Now with Nightblade, you have to choose between claws and daggers. We're using a pneumatic dagger, which lets all damage poison. That means we can get a lot of flat damage from elemental too. For example, Blizzard Crown gives you like 100 flat damage with no downside, because hit damage doesn't affect your poison. Now let's talk about Viper Strike. It's essentially just an empowered basic attack with a 4-second base duration instead of the default 2-second poison. That's in theory doubling your poison DPS because it allows for more concurrent poison stacks. But here's the thing, Lightning Strike does that too since it gives you 2 hits instead of 1, so that means the damage will be similar, but ramping up is a lot faster on Lightning Strike. And ramping is a pretty big part of the build. As an assassin, you want to quickly get a large number of poisons to do optimal DPS. This also means you want as much attack speed as possible, which will also help with your charge generation because you have 10% on hit, so the more hits the better. Attack speed also helps to smooth out the playstyle a lot, especially with the melee strike animation. There's an annoying delay half the time where you kinda have to wind up for an attack. And not only is ramping faster good for damage by meeting requisite poison thresholds, it's also a lot nicer for the playstyle, because this helmet craft is kind of a big deal in poison builds, where duration equals DPS, kind of. You can get a lot of burst down with focus, especially combined with the focus attack speed craft on your gloves, and then you have time to dodge and reposition while your super long duration poisons tick down. It's actually kind of fun. In some fights, it feels a little bit like Dark Souls where you dodge around and wait for DPS windows with focus, and trust me, you'll need to do a lot of repositioning, dodging, and, well, waiting around with Viper Strike, at least, for Uber bosses. For non-Ubers, you can pretty much just face roll them. By the way, if you don't mind the little extra tedium, you can use Relic Ashes and Patience to cap your charges at the beginning of boss fights. Okay, however, with Lightning Strike, your ramp will be faster, so you'll be able to get more damage in during your focus. The poisons won't last as long, but here's the thing with Viper Strike. Its whole gimmick is the long poison duration, so a lot of the extra damage you're getting is kinda backloaded. Now, most of the things in the game where you'd benefit the most from all that damage would be Uber bosses, but unfortunately they all have invulnerability phases. So it's not uncommon for you to get all your stacks and then immediately have them nullified with an ultimate chaos or inescapable doom. I think that's the biggest reason for why Lightning Strike's just better, in my opinion. The ramp time is going to be shorter, also it gives you the option to hit from a range. You don't have to just stand there and wait if you can't get into melee range. You can hit multiple targets at once. It has better mapping. Vol Lightning Strike gives you a huge single target boost. I guess the main drawback is that the Pierce helmet enchant is pretty expensive, like no one's running lap right now. And I guess if you're rich and you can afford it, you might as well turn this into a Mage Blood build, because this build doesn't get anything for flask sustain, and it'll also help with defenses a lot. I think this is one of the builds that will benefit greatly from having a Mage Blood. Honestly, you can probably make most things work with enough investment, but I was trying to keep the cost pretty reasonable since it's not like a Giga insane build or anything. And for those of you who want to stick with the true melee experience, you can try Pestilent Strike for mapping, it feels a little bit better. Oh, and for both Lightning Strike and Viper Strike / Pestilent Strike, you need at least 1 additional strike on your gloves. For Viper Strike, it adds a little range to your attacks, and it makes it so that you don't have to name lock. As long as you click in the general direction of what you want to hit, the additional strike will auto-target. And for Lightning Strike, it enables the double hit interaction. Other things you'll need if you want to play Lightning Strike is a few additional pierces. Normally, you'd get this from the helmet enchant, but they're super expensive to get on a Blizzard Crown right now. if you can even get one. So instead, you might have to settle for other sources like gloves, helmet, boots, anomalous gem, and make sure you have 100% poison chance. You should be capped with the provided tree, but check anyway just in case. The gearing should be pretty straightforward. Just cap res, spell suppress, ailment avoid, strength for gems, life everywhere you can, chaos res if you can afford it. Oh yeah, make sure you get enough int for the covenant. I think you just need at least a 23 roll, otherwise you might need the int enchant. Since you're getting the required int from the item itself, you'll need to temporarily put on something with a bunch of int to equip the covenant initially and every time you accidentally take it off. I just use an amulet, but a weapon swap would be pretty 5-head. Oh, I should mention, I have some mana regen from getting Unveiled Life on my rings, so it's possible you might run out of mana for mapping if you don't have it. Not too sure about that, but if you do run into mana issues, you might need to get this mana on hit or some leech. On bosses, you'll be fine. Poacher's Mark will be enough for your mana sustain, just make sure you have enough unreserved for your mark on hit and cast when damage taken. If you need more reservation, lower the levels on your flat auras or try a small reservation cluster. I think I've covered most of the important things. Feel free to comment if you have any questions or if I missed anything. Bye!